What's going on, everyone? So Skip Bayless recently spoke with the Washington Post and talked about Shannon Sharpe and kind of that whole debacle, and kind of gave us some insight into the world of Skip and Shannon. And Skip Bayless says he lost his love for the game after FS1 pushed out his debating partner, Shannon Sharpe. My heart was no longer in it because I didn't want Shannon to leave, and I fought for him to stay. It was a shock they pushed Shannon out via the Washington Post. Now, obviously, Skip and Shannon were just the dynamic duo, right? They were the powerhouse. They were so fun to watch. You know, in many ways they were oil and water, right? Like they just didn't mix, or was it oil and vinegar or whatever the saying is. But they that's what made it great. And they're both kind of going at each other. You know, the skip, right? Like you just. I still hear that in my head regularly. And it was fun to watch them and their dynamic and the way that they played off of each other. Obviously, it's a debate show. You're always going to have one side of the, like if they're just constantly agreeing, then you don't really get a debate show. Like you have to, one side play one way, one side play the other. So that way you can kind of have this back and forth, kind of make the arguments either side. And it was quite the experience. And then you had this just public downfall, and it was crazy. And I just think it's odd, to put it nicely, that Skip Bayless still hasn't really taken accountability, right? Like, I think that would have been a good opportunity of kind of expressing like, hey, I'm the reason that this fell apart, right? Because we all saw and are familiar with that argument that stemmed over Tom Brady and the whole jealousy thing, and Skip saying some very interesting stuff towards Shannon that many people probably would have walked up and handled it a different way. Credit Shannon for keeping his composure and and being professional, because man, there was some stuff, right? And it was the straw that broke the camel's back, right? Like these two didn't have to be friends. These two didn't have to be anything other than just coworkers. Their dynamic worked. Obviously, Shannon expressed how much he still, even after the incident and everything, how much like he felt like he owed Skip Bayless for his career and all that stuff, and how thankful he is because he gave him the chance. Because Skip even talks about how in the article that he actually had the chance to go back and do this again with Stephen A. Smith, and him and Stephen A. We're going to get to do that, but then Fox kind of came in with the new contract, stuff like that. Ended up sticking around, ultimately Shannon Sharpe. And, Skip Bayless did kind of put it out there for Shannon, right? Like he basically said, like, I will only do it with Shannon. So, and they've both relayed that, so Shannon does, and I understand Shannon being just very thankful for what Skip Bayless has done for him post the NFL. But still, like, Skip Bayless was the downfall. Like, the networks and stuff pushed Shannon out, okay, but how did that stem? Like, you pushed him out. You were the cause for that. Everything was fine until you got, I don't know, you just got carried away. I don't want to think that, Skip, I mean, he comes off at times as this just annoying, obnoxious person, very ignorant in a lot of areas at times, and he's a character, right? He's playing a character for a show. Like, how much of it is him in real life? How much of it is just this character? Right? And a lot of times, I mean, after doing something for so long, eventually it's hard to kind of draw the line, right? You play a character long enough, you kind of take on those traits of those characters. I everyone was willing to kind of just take it as like, hey, it was just a moment that got carried away. It happens, right? Heat of the moment, heat of the debate. Right? I'm a sports fan. I'm a sports guy. I've had back and forth with people that have gotten pretty intense. I mean, for me, it was more of like the usage of words that Skip had towards Shannon, right? Like, it's one thing to get heated. It's one thing to, kind of go at each other and kind of have those like, oh, hey, this is getting pretty hot here, right? Like, maybe sides need to cool down. It's one thing for that. Another side to start like really taking jabs and put your glasses back on, blah, 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 right? And like it went to a place that it shouldn't have went, right? again, everyone's had those. If you're a diehard sports fan, we've all had that. I've been in, in like sports books and stuff, and I'm over there debating and screaming at me, people screaming at me back, and it's the beauty, right? No, what are you talking about? You have no idea, right? Like that's fun. It is. It's enjoyable. And then afterwards, you go have a beer, you cool off, right? You kind of get in that tense situation, and then cooler heads prevail, and you're just like, hey, you know what? Like, man, what a great debate. And you laugh, and you joke, and it's a good time. But that's not what this was. This just kept spiraling. And both of these guys went on clearly different paths. You had one guy who his entire career is over, right? Skip Bayless. He's off TV now. Now, he likes to kind of downplay it and say, like, oh, well, I lost the passion. I was done. No, ratings tanked. You had this perception, you had this look on him, right? Because again, it wasn't just a fiery debate. It wasn't just a fiery discussion, right? Like I mentioned, like everyone's been in those. Everyone's been in fiery discussions and debates. If you have siblings, you have those regularly, right? Like especially growing up, like we've all been in that where you're screaming at your brother screaming back, right? And then again, things cool off. That just got pushed to another level, and that left Skip Bayless in a position to where it's like, okay, things just changed for him, right? And now you're bringing in all these random people, and you're trying to basically Mickey Mouse a show that was perfect, right? That could have went on for another 10 plus years, right? Until Skip got old enough to not want to do it anymore. I mean, who knows how long that would have been? I mean, he's already in his 70s, like 73, something like that. So how much longer would that have lasted? But, you look at Shannon, for him personally, was the best thing that ever happened to him, right? Like, I'm sure in that moment, it was frustrating. I'm sure in that moment, it was, again, and credit Shannon for keeping his composure. Because not everyone would have done that, right? He did a fantastic job showing restraint, professionalism, all that, right? Like, especially when Skip Bayless was not being professional. And so to see Shannon ended up getting this reputation and this stigma and this, but in a positive light, right? You had one that just got looked at as he's the bad guy, and you got the other guy looked at as like, this is the shiny hero. And, again, Shannon deserved it. He was the shiny hero in that moment. He was the guy that was able to let cooler heads prevail, right? And like Shannon looked at it as like, hey, like, it happens, right? You get in these conversations, like I mentioned earlier. You get in these people getting it. You're passionate. You have these two passionate people trying to express their points. You're gonna get in that, but you gotta be able to keep it within boundaries. You gotta be able to keep it within frame. You don't want to be taking it out of this line. You don't want to cross the line. And Skip crossed the line, which caused the downfall. And now look where he's at, and look at where Shannon's at. But what Shannon and Skip had, you're not able to replicate, right? Like, from a viewer and audience standpoint, although Shannon's had some very interesting, like the Cat Williams thing, his certain tape, it's YouTube, so I got to be careful. It was more audio than tape, but, where he and then he addressed it after and all that stuff, right? So, like, don't get me wrong, Shannon has had some stuff, but like from a viewer standpoint of just like the camaraderie and back and forth of Skip and Shannon, it was an experience. It was a joy in a lot of ways, right? You're never going to be able to, like, it was lightning in a bottle, right? Like, you're never going to be able to recapture that. And again, for Shannon, which is great, it really did. It's what's best for him, really. Like, this was the best thing that could happen because now he's got his own network, he's got his own stuff, right? He's doing his own thing independently, and sky's the limit. He's only going to continue to grow and get bigger. And Skip again is he's going to reach a point where he fades to irrelevance if he's not already there. And you just see two people going in very different paths, very different directions. But it's unfortunate, right? As a viewer, I mean, I wasn't like a big Undisputed guy. I wasn't like a big fan of the show personally. I'm not like really big on the debate shows. I think a lot of them they're too staged at times. They're too like obnoxious at times for me, particularly Skip. even Stephen A can kind of just go all over the place at times, and you're just like, dude, like there's not really analysts anymore, right? Like there's some shows, right? Like I do like First Take with Brew and Nick and stuff like that. Even though I don't always agree with everything that they say, it's not as much a debate to show as it is just like, them expressing their opinions about information that's presented, right? I do find those entertaining, but like, the just screaming match and just spewing out a bunch of nonsense, like, oh, you can't do that, like, all right, like, and then the clear insane bias of just like trashing LeBron. I loved how LeBron though was like the like, you had one side that just criticized LeBron for everything. He was breathing too hard that game. Like, what? Like, and then Shannon was the complete opposite, where he's just like, LeBron could do no wrong. LeBron was perfect, right? Like, but I wasn't a big Undisputed guy, but I loved moments. You get the clips regularly of like just Shannon and Skip, and everyone just can still hear the Skip. Come on, Skip. Like, we all know that. We all live that. And it was entertainment. It was fun. It was exciting during the time that it was a thing. But it's done. It's over with now. Like I mentioned, you have one side that's on a completely different path than the other. But it's going to be exciting to see where Skip continues to go, or Shannon continues to go, continues to grow, as just, a content creator and somebody in the space, because he is so beloved now. I mean, how many people can have the audio leak that he had, and there wasn't really any criticism, right? Everyone was like, get it, Shannon, like everyone was like, oh, he's not, like, even Shannon was joking about it. Like, Ocho was like, you're not gay today, right? Like, it's just, it is. I like that he hit it head on. He didn't BS, right? Like his publicist or whatever released that tweet, or X or whatever you want to call it, right? And was like, somebody hacked this thing, and he came on and was like, nobody hacked anything. I made a mistake. I don't know how to use this stuff. I clicked it. My bad. Right? I love that. The accountability, that I messed up. Right, it's an act that everyone does, or most people do. Like, obviously you don't want that out for the world. I'm sure there was a level of shame and embarrassment. I'm sure some people kind of weren't happy about it, but it's life. You take it head on and you move on, and you're better for it. Right? And that's what I think Shannon has done, and it's great to see kind of Shannon continue this trajectory. But when you talk about Skip, it's just the downfall definitely needs to be studied. It shows, like, you can't cross that line. Start crossing that line, and you start, he's always been, but that's the thing. He's always been a guy that has been on the line, right? He's always a guy that's tread the line. And when you go from treading the line, you're going to have times where you'll go over that line. And he just went over the line that one time that just led to the downfall. And it's unfortunate. It really is, because it was a great show, and we'll see what the future holds. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, a past question on you. Like I said, I talk about this for an hour, because I think it's very fascinating. But I just saw the article, and I saw Skip basically saying like, oh, I was batting for him, like trying to like, oh, like, hey, it wasn't me, like, it's like, yeah, but take some accountability, right? Like, this stemmed because of you, because you weren't able to control yourself. You weren't able to be an adult in a moment and then even correct it after, right? Like, if he would have came out and just been like, you know what, I really crossed the line. Like, he even was trying to justify it and stuff like that, even after he not apologizing for that. Like if he would have just came out and just said, hey, you know what? It happens. Stuff happens. We got caught up in the moment. I crossed the line. I went too far, right? I should have controlled myself better. I said some things and did some things that I shouldn't have done. Taking accountability, being an adult, right? People make mistakes. If he would have just came out and said, and just basically took all the accountability and just said like, hey, this was on me, my bad. And then they just continued the show, that would have been it, and everything would have been fine. But it wasn't. And then now there's this relationship. And even Skip, if he just goes to Shannon, like, dude, hey, you know what? I was out of pocket. I was out of line. I shouldn't have done that. I crossed the line. I crossed the boundary. Look, I'm always on that line, and this time I went too far. Come on, Shannon knows he's a professional. He loves Skip. He still probably loves Skip to an extent, right? He's talked about how he doesn't really talk to him as much, but no, I don't think that there would have been any bad blood, and they would have more likely than not been able to continue to do the show. Would have been able to continue to make the show, but you wanted to stand on your high horse. You wanted to act like everyone's just blowing this out of proportion. No, it wasn't. We all saw the tape. Like, it wasn't great. Some people's opinions, I think, went a little too far about the situation. I don't think it was, people tried to paint Skip like he was just this bigot. I don't think it was that. I just think the way it was approached, definitely, like you could see, like it wasn't a good look. Let's put it like that, right? It wasn't a good look. But again, I also don't know Skip, so who knows? I don't know where his head's at. I don't know what he's thinking. I just look at the situation for what it was and how it was. But anyway, again, I have a feel whatever your thoughts are. Love to hear it. Let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos. Truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See